Yeah. Came at 17. Damn.
Good morning, sir. Sir, my patient is a 50-year-old lady hailing from Kollam who is a known case of systemic hypertension and dyslipidemia, presented with complaints of fever of 5 days duration. Patient is apparently normal 5 days back. When she developed fever, it was high grade, continuous, associated with chills and rigors, associated with vomiting, headache, body pain, and also associated with one episode of loose stools. So the vomitus was non-projectile. It was bilious in nature. There was no blood in the vomitus. There was no history of passage of blood in
Fever with vomiting, what are differential diagnoses you can tell?
gastroenteritis,
Gastroenteritis.
typhoid,
Vomiting.
vomiting, infection,
Infectious, a lot of infectious cause have them. But
salmonella.
any abdominal related infection like salmonella, gastroenteritis, you told. Other than that,
Raised eyes.
raised ICP with
Raised ICP,
encephalitis,
meningitis.
you can have vomiting. Then one of the common condition is urinary tract infection. They present with vomiting mainly because urinary tract infection actually it is not related to abdomen, stomach, but still they present with vomiting. So raised ICP, abdominal condition, and urinary tract infection. These are the causes for vomiting. Okay.
No history of yellowish discoloration of skin or mucous membranes, no history of cough, sore throat, breathlessness or hemoptysis, no history of burning, micturition or increased frequency of urination, no history of abdominal pain, no history of jaundice or repeated blood transfusion, no history of similar episodes in the family. No history of prolonged fever or weight loss to rule out TB. Moving
It's
on.
in a short history.
Yes, sir. Moving on to personal history. So, she consumed a mixed sort of diet. Her sleep was reduced. She decreased appetite. There was, as I mentioned, loose stools. Her bladder habit was normal, sir. Now moving on, and there was no history of bronchial asthma or tuberculosis. Family history is not significant. No significant past history. Menstrual history, sir. She attained menopause.
Family history, you should not tell it's not significant. When somebody is having fever, you have to ask for any family member or relative or neighbors have this type of fever.
Oh, okay, sir.
Okay, that is the significance in fever. Okay.
But in the community or her family, nobody had.
nothing.
And menstrual history, she attained menopause 1.5 years back, sir. And no history of contact with any COVID patient, or no history of COVID infection in the family. So, moving on to head to foot examination, sir. Scalp was normal, normal eyes do not look sunken. The lips and teeth are normal, no bleeding gums. No evidence of splinter hemorrhages, Janeway lesion, Osler's nose to rule out infective endocarditis. No evidence of ecchymotic patches, petechia, maculopapular rashes, no vesicles. External genitalia appear to be normal, skin appear to be normal.
You have to tell everything, external genital area, what all things you look, like mainly blebs, like herpes virus. Okay.
Herpes virus. On examination, patient was conscious, cooperative, well oriented to time, place and person. She was well built and well nourished. There was no pallor, icterus, cyanosis, scrubbing or lymphadenopathy or pedal edema. Moving on to vital examination, sir, her pulse rate was 70 per minute. It was regular in rate.
So when you tell about pulse rate in a fever, you have to tell what is the temperature that time, what is the pulse rate. If there is an increase, that you have to document. If there is a decrease from the expected temperature, you have to document.
So her temperature was 100 degree Fahrenheit, sir, and pulse rate was 72 per minute. Regular rate, normal rhythm, volume, character, no radioradial or no radiofemoral delay. Peripheral pulses are felt bilaterally equally. Now, respiratory rate was 20 per minute, thoraco-abdominal. Blood pressure was 100/60, measured when patient is in lying down position on the right arm using an
adult. You want to check a postural BP, standing BP?
In this
Do you want to check?
Any
fever patient who is having volume loss because of high degree fever, sweating, all these things, their kind of first sign of hypovolemia is postural hypotension. So all patients, if they are stable enough to stand, you have to check a postural BP, that standing BP should be examined, and you have to document there is no postural hypertension. This is one of the earliest sign of hypovolemia.
Yes, sir. Moving on to systemic examinations, I'd like to proceed with the GIT examination first. On examination, the abdomen was normal in shape. It was not distended. There was no flank fullness. All quadrants moved equally with respiration. Skin over the abdomen was normal. There were no scars or no sinuses. All the hernial orifices were examined. They were normal. There were no dilated veins. The umbilicus was central.
How do you examine for dilated veins?
Sir, you have to milk.
Patient has to stand.
Okay, sir.
Without patient standing, you cannot examine for a dilated vein. When you are lying down, most of these vessels will disappear. So if you want to examine for a dilated veins in the abdomen, make the patient stand. Okay, then you do your like emptying of the vessel, all these things.
So on palpation, there was no local rise in temperature. There was no local tenderness. There was no organomegaly. No free fluid was appreciated. On percussion, so liver
look for inguinal lymph node that time itself. When you are examining the abdomen itself, look for inguinal lymph nodes.
In this case, there was no.
Okay.
Percussion, liver dullness was felt in the fifth right intercostal space. Sir. Liver span was 12 centimeter. There was no evidence of shifting dullness. On auscultation, bowel sounds were heard approximately 2 per minute, and there was no bruit heard. Moving on to respiratory system examination, sir, there was within normal limits. Bilateral air entry was present. Vesicular breath sounds. There was no evidence of wheeze or crepitations. Cardiovascular system, S1, S2 was heard. No murmurs or other added sounds. CNS, no focal neurology.
What will be your clinical diagnosis when you are seeing a case like this?
So, fever under
evaluation is correct, but you should have some clinical differential diagnosis in a fever patient when the patient present in Kerala. Like that, depending on the place from where the patient is coming, we should have some differential diagnosis. If the clinical history does not giving any clue for the fever, then the surrounding area history, that is location, that is very important. So what are things you suspect here?
So dengue would
will be one of the common infection in Kerala.
Then leptospirosis.
Okay.
The rainy season.
Okay. Can we think about malaria?
Malaria, yes.
Malaria is not very common in Kerala, but migrants, those who come from other states, that is common in Kerala. But if you are working in somewhere else, some other state, there malaria may be very common. So malaria is not a first differential diagnosis in Kerala. If they are recent travel outside or somebody is coming from other states, then it is possible.
So COVID
infection is one of the common infection here nowadays. That is also should be taken into consideration. Then typhoid is very common, so that should be kept in mind. TB history should be more longer, like 2-3 weeks history of low grade fever. That will be TB. So these are the common things: dengue, leptospirosis, typhoid. Malaria is not very common in our state. Otherwise, malaria also come to like first this one.
Okay, sir.
So how do you proceed?
So moving on to investigations, like to send for a CBC.
Why you want to send CBC? What all information you will get from that?
Sir, we can look at the hemoglobin.
You can get hemoglobin. Okay, that will not correlate with your fever history, but that's okay. Then
platelet count.
Platelet count can be low in
dengue, fever,
leptospirosis, malaria, all these things. Okay, then WBC
total.
It can be elevated in
bacterial
infection. It can be low in viral infection. Which bacterial infection it can be low?
Typhoid.
Typhoid it can be low. Okay. So these are the basic information you get from the counts. Then
so LFT, RFT.
LFT, why you want to look?
So in case of leptospirosis, sometimes you can get elevated.
Almost all viral fever plus leptospirosis and malaria also you can get elevated SGOT, SGPT, slight elevation in the bilirubin also can occur. Okay, but that does not tell you that this is one type of disease. All diseases you can get all these things. Okay, then
renal function also.
Which RFT. One you want to see?
Creatinine.
Creatinine can be elevated in which all type of common infections? Creatinine is elevated mainly in leptospirosis, Wheel syndrome. That is leptospirosis. Other common viral fevers, it may not be elevated. Hantavirus is not very common, but it can elevate in hantavirus infection.
Yes.
Okay. And leptospira is one of the common infection where you get elevated creatinine early itself. Okay, then
Sir, then inflammatory markers
CRP can be elevated in all types of fever. And we can know that what is the extent of the disease. If it's a severe disease, CRP may be 300, 400. If it's a mild disease, it may be 10 or 15.
Procalcitonin. if
Procalcitonin, why you
it's
want to
suspecting bacteria.
So if you are suspecting a bacterial infection, procalcitonin will be helpful, and if the patient is in sepsis, it may be very high. Okay.
Urine routine
Urine routine
to
for,
rule out any urinary tract.
so you can get pus cells in the
Pus cells in
urine.
urine.
Okay, so you can do urine routine. Then
പിന്നെ
want to take a chest X-ray.
chest X-ray.
So chest X-ray is very important when you are evaluating a fever in your emergency room. But if the patient does not have symptoms like respiratory symptoms, it may not be useful. You may not get any finding from that. However, if the patient is having a cough, breathlessness, and all, chest X-ray should be taken. Then
An ultrasound look
ultrasound
for
for
any, bladder.
ultrasound is mainly used for to find out whether hepatosplenomegaly is there or lymph nodes are there. Clinically, if you are not getting, it may not be very helpful, but still it comes under the basic investigation of fever. Then blood culture.
Blood culture.
When you have a fever in the first week, you may not get any many of the antibody tests. So for diagnosing a bacterial infection, you have to ask for one blood culture. Okay. Then if you want to rule out dengue, how do you do?
Dengue, sir, depends on when the patient presents.
Okay.
If the patient presents within 1 week, NS1.
So early presentation, you ask for NS1 antigen. Late presentation,
Antibody. Dengue
antibody. So once the patient become more sick, or the time gap is very important. After first week and all, antibodies will be formed. So initial presentation NS1 antigen, then antibody for dengue, IgM dengue. Leptospira.
Leptospira, microscopic, MAT, agglutination.
First investigation leptospira is urine for leptospira. Okay, dark field microscopy, that should be done. Then afterwards you can ask for your antibody, leptospira IgM. Okay, that can be done. Okay, then
Vidal test.
Vidal test will be done for
Typhoid fever.
typhoid. When will you ask Vidal? Again, same like that. Vidal is an antibody test. After 1 week, it will be positive. Before 1 week,
Blood.
we have to ask for blood culture.
cultures.
Okay. Malaria,
Malaria peripheral smear.
you can ask peripheral smear. You can ask QBCMP. What is QBCMP?
Quantitative Buffy code.
Buffy coating. In that, from the Buffy code, we can see the pathogen there, that malaria can be there. Okay. So these are the basic investigation. We will ask for blood culture. If urine shows pus cells, we will ask for urine culture. Then basic investigation for all this diagnosis. And in local area, if some other infection is very common, we have to ask for that also. Suppose Zika virus is very common in Kerala. It is coming nowadays. So you have to ask for Zika PCR or antibody test. Okay. How do you manage this case in emergency room? Somebody come with fever, vomiting. Okay, that's all we have. No, the counts are sent. Okay, it may be dengue positive or lepto positive, whatever it is. But we have to initiate the treatment. How do you initiate?
Injection paracetamol
So,
500.
what are the indications for paracetamol? That is very important. Paracetamol should not be given for every patient. Fever is a protective mechanism. You have a infection. Why fever is coming?
Body is
Body is responding to that. You have interleukins, TNF. They produce inflammation that may kill the bacteria. And fever is a protective mechanism. But if the patient is uncomfortable, then we have to start on paracetamol. What are the definitive indications for paracetamol?
PU.
PU is not an indication. PU and all, we don't give paracetamol. We want to know what is the pattern of fever.
When patient is having some malignancy and
Patient is having myocardial infarction, fever. You have to give paracetamol. Patient is having stroke with fever. You have to give paracetamol. Patient is pregnant. You have to give paracetamol. Patient is having seizures. You have to give paracetamol. These are the compelling indication. Otherwise, somebody is coming with fever. If the patient is not able to tolerate the fever, you have to give paracetamol, IV or oral. Which one you prefer?
If patient is able to.
Patient able to take oral tablets, you have to give oral tablets. Is there any side effects for paracetamol?
Liver.
There is very high dose, more than 8 grams. in a patient who is having liver disease more than 4 grams in a day can produce liver toxicity. Okay, otherwise 1 gram paracetamol, 2 gram paracetamol will not be will not have any clinical importance. Okay, so you can give 1 or 2 grams of paracetamol every day, like 650 milligram TID oral or 1 gram IV 3 times daily can be given. That will reduce the fever, that will reduce the symptoms, that will not treat the clinical picture. Okay, so if the patient is having leptospirosis, how do you treat?
Doxycycline.
So you can, if the patient is admitted, you can give IV. If the patient is OPD treatment, you can give doxycycline 100 milligram once daily or twice daily. Some book says that initial dose is 200 milligram, then once daily is enough. Some doctors prefer to give 100 milligram BD. Okay, so ideal dose is 200 milligram loading dose and next day onwards 100 milligram. Okay, if you are admitting the patient in leptospirosis, you have to give crystalline penicillin, amoxicillin, any penicillin will be okay, azithromycin will be okay, or any other antibiotic will be okay. Ideal drug is crystalline penicillin or any penicillin group. That is leptospirosis. What other investigation will tell you that leptospirosis is likely? CK. What is CK? Creatine kinase. It's a muscle enzyme. When the patient is having infected with leptospira, initially itself CK will be very high. So that will give a clinical clue. Okay. So you can give penicillin, amoxicillin, augmentin, any penicillin. Okay. Suppose the patient is having dengue virus, how do you treat?
IV fluids.
IV fluids.
And depending on the platelet count.
Paracetamol and IV fluids. Okay. If the patient's platelet count is low, then you have to transfuse platelet. Okay. How do you transfuse platelet? What are the indications?
If the platelet count is less than 10.
If the patient is having clinical bleeding, whatever may be the platelet count, you have to transfuse. If the patient is having platelet count lower than 10,000, okay, in acute settings like dengue fever, leptospira, then you will have to give. Otherwise, we don't give. Or if the patient is having any procedure, okay, suppose you want to do a neurosurgical procedure, platelet count is, even if it is 25,000, you will have to make it above 1 lakh. Okay, that settings you may require higher. Otherwise, in simple dengue fever, if it is less than 10,000, you have to transfuse. Or if there is a clinical bleeding at any count, you have to transfuse. Okay, that is dengue fever. You don't prefer any antibiotic. You don't give any steroid in dengue fever. Okay. Now malaria, how do you treat?
Artesunate.
Malaria, there are 2 types of malaria: chloroquine sensitive, chloroquine resistant. Chloroquine sensitive means you can give chloroquine, but most of the areas in India, they are chloroquine resistant and quinine resistant. So you have to go for artesunate therapy. That should be started. Okay. In another fever, what we discussed? Typhoid. How do you treat typhoid? Fluoroquinolones. There are again typhoid is quinolone resistance, quinolone sensitive. If they are quinolone sensitive, you go for fluoroquinolone. What is the ideal fluoroquinolone you can give? Ciprofloxacin. What is the dose? 500 milligram BD. Okay, that should be given. Or ofloxacin 400 milligram once daily. If the patient is admitted to hospital or quinolone resistance is suspected, you have to go for ceftriaxone. 2 gram IV OD can be given. Okay, so that is like that. Zika virus, there is no major treatment. It is only supportive therapy. So almost all viral fevers, you have to support the patient. Including in COVID-19 infection, the patient is sick only, we go for antivirals. If the patient is not sick, then only supportive therapy. If the patient is having H1N1, how do you treat?
Again, supportive therapy.
Mostly it's supportive, but there is a drug available, oseltamivir, 75 milligram BD can be given. So all these things can be done. You have to follow up this patient. How do you follow up? You have admitted the patient, you have sent a routine investigation baseline, then you have started paracetamol. How do you follow up on the next stage? What investigation should be done?
CBC.
Normally we don't do all investigations in this patient because first day we have sent. Again, no need to send CBC. If you are suspecting like thrombocytopenia, you have to send. Otherwise, CRP alone will be enough. Because if the patient is deteriorating, CRP will be the first one to rise. Okay. Then only other things will rise. So better to send CRP every day. If there is a problem clinically, patient is deteriorating in any of these parameters, then you have to send investigation. Otherwise, we don't prefer to send investigation every day. How many days blood culture will take?
7.
Normally 48 hours you'll get the first report, then 72 hours you get complete report. So we have to wait for that. If the patient is absolutely normal, we can discharge the patient. When will you discharge the patient?
Once the
If the patient is
CRP
stable,
is,
if the patient is orally able to take the food, and you can discharge the patient. If the parameters are normal, we should discharge the patient. Because fever should not be kept in ward for unlimited period. What will happen if you keep the patient inside hospital for a long? They may develop hospital acquired infection. So better to discharge the patient as fast as possible, depending on your investigation. Anything else you want to add?
No, nothing.
Okay. So what happened to this patient ultimately?
Now,
What was the diagnosis?
So her dengue NS1 was
So we should
positive,
treat
so
it
we
as
treated as dengue fever.
Okay. What are the expected complications?
So dengue shock syndrome.
Dengue shock syndrome is hypotension with fluid loss from the intravascular compartment that should be treated with
In
IV fluids. Okay. Then
do hemorrhagic fever.
hemorrhagic. That is due to
Because of platelet.
Okay.
bleeding,
That should be treated as we discussed. Platelet transfusion should be given. Anything else? Then they can have all types of complications. Encephalitis can be myocarditis, pericarditis, pericardial effusion. Any organ can be involved, even in dengue. Severe dengue, almost all organs can be involved. Normally, we don't see all these things. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.